Hi, my name is Atia Thurman. Slowly you're populating in our screen. We're really happy to see you. It's the last day of Admitted Students Week, but it's the very beginning of your journey with us. So we're really happy to have you here. Yeah, so if you're comfortable, if you're in a place where you want to turn your camera on, we welcome that. My name's Atia Thurman. I'll get started with introductions here pretty soon. I would love to hear from everyone if you don't mind using the chat. And because this is my first time meeting you, I'd love to hear just your name, your pronouns, where you're zooming in from. And I'm going to post in the chat 3 questions that I'd love for you to answer just one. All right. So, what pandemic pastime has sustained you lately? If you had a super strength, what would it be? And what 3 words describe how you feel at this moment? Feel free to select from that menu. Oh, it's great. I love seeing your cameras come on. Yes. It's okay if you don't turn it on, but I'm just really excited to meet you all. And tell us a little bit about yourself. I know you've been doing that all week, so thank you for reintroducing yourself in multiple places and spaces this week. Welcome to the Brown School. I know we're in this very altered existence right now, but we're really excited to have you here, and we're really happy to be here this morning. It is Friday, April 9th, and my name is Atia Thurman. I'm Associate Director of the Clark Fox Policy Institute at the Brown School, and I'm also Manager of Equity and Inclusion Initiatives. Great, thank you. And I'm an alum. I graduated in 2002. And I was social and economic development. I'm not a St. Louis native, but I've been here long enough to be really grateful to call St. Louis and the Brown School and Washington University my home. And I returned to the Brown School in 2015, so it's coming up on 6 years. I came back to help launch the Clark Fox Policy Institute. And coming back after 15 years, it was just an incredible to see how much growth and progress the school had experienced in such a short period of time. So as an alum, it's been extremely rewarding being back and being part of this community and feeling like I came home. The expansion of programs, I have to tell you, I'm a little jealous of all the options you have and the option to kind of like create your own journey. We've always been that kind of school, but it's just really been incredible in the last couple of years. So you're coming at a just really great time. And I know that's weird to say because we're in the middle of a pandemic, but we're starting to see what life looks like on the other side of that. And it's really promising. So I came back to a school that was just had experienced incredible growth and expansion. The research and the institutes and the faculty, market changes and increases in our diversity, and also a fabulous new building. I do have to tell you, a lot of us have these digital backgrounds, but that's what this is Hillman Hall. So welcome to the virtual Hillman Hall. As you're joining us, if you're new, if you're just now joining, I see a couple more people, please tell us a little bit about yourself in the chat. Tell us your name and where you're zooming in from. So I just want to share that there are so many gifts associated with being part of this community. And that's how I have come to see and view my experience here. There's so many gifts. And from everything from an incredible learning journey, our faculty and staff, our students, our shared experiences, our exposure and the construction of new knowledge and new ideas that challenge and inspire us, and a network of people who believe in the dignity of humans and are working towards a just and equitable world. Most days I wake up and I'm just like, I really can't imagine being anywhere else. This is really home for me. And so I'm really grateful. Another incredible gift among the gifts of the Brown School is our dynamic dean, Mary McKay. She is a researcher, a practitioner, an advocate, a visionary, a community builder, among many things. And this is really important to me to say that she is our first woman dean of the Brown School. And that's really historic for me that I got to be part of seeing that happen. And we've had quite an adventure these past 5 years, Dean McKay. And especially getting to see her lead us through this last year of the pandemic. I am so grateful for the ways in which our lives and our paths are intertwined in some very significant ways, from elevating racial justice and health equity to celebrating life's milestones. Like when her daughter was married in 2019 and I got to officiate the ceremony and getting to see her grandbaby being born this last year during the pandemic. So we share a lot. We share a community, we share a mission. And today I'm just really grateful that we get to share a conversation with you all. So without further ado, I would like to invite Dean McKay to introduce herself.
Hi, good morning, everyone. It is just wonderful to end this week with you. So wishing you all a peaceful Friday, a peaceful weekend. I'm happy to be here. And this is I probably one of your most informal sessions that, you know, T and I are just going to talk to each other and talk to you and answer you know, questions that you have about us as humans, in addition to the roles that we play. So I do have the privilege of being the Dean of the Brown School. But I've also actually been welcoming trainees in other spaces all week. And so one of our icebreaker activities is to kind of say, how else are you known in your life? So Dean Mary is one of the ways that you know, some of our trainees refer to me. But I'm also a mother. Those of you that heard me speak earlier in the week know that I've raised 5 adult children who are incredible. And a couple of those adults actually are Brown School alums. I'm on my 3rd floor right now of a house very close to campus that's owned by the university. I'm usually not here. I'm usually in my kitchen. So Danielle in particular was very disoriented, like, where are your kitchen cabinets? And why am I here? Because my daughter is running a conference for the Integrated Health Network downstairs in my kitchen, where the internet is the best. She works at Integrated Health Network around racial equity and Black women's positive birth experiences to address mother mortality. So you get me and the fluffy white dog in back of me. So I'm a mother. As many of you will, as you come to the Brown School and we open up events, meet my husband, Jan. And we have young people that live here in St. Louis, but also on the East Coast. I am also a grandmother. Nolan is 9.5 months old. And boy, am I liking that, because last night I got home and I got a picture, and he took about, I don't know, I would say 7-8 steps independently, and then did a very casual dive into his toy box, because of course he can't stop. And so I am loving, you know, being in that role as well. I also have tried hard to keep a very serious commitment to my science in children's health. And so it's been a very full life to be the first female dean, to be, you know, a catalyst and a supporter and a champion within this amazing community, but also really to keep in mind, you know, what got me into social work and public health and social policy in the first place, which is, you know, I really care about kids' health. I really care about the adults that raise young people. I really care about the communities that need to wrap their arms around kids and families. And I want the systems and the policies that we've set up to actually serve them, not burden them. And so those are some of the other ways I show up in this life. And Atia, you're going to have to just keep asking me questions.
Yeah, I'm going to keep asking. Well, so, you know, we've had a chance to introduce ourselves, and I know we can't invite everyone to take themselves off of me and introduce themselves, but I just want to acknowledge what I'm seeing in the chat really quickly and just say, and then I want to say thanks so much to Tracy, who said, could we just have a minute to sort of appreciate who's in the room and who's showing up in the chat? And so I'm seeing things from Annalie Wilson, who's in Boston, and Alicia, who's in Springfield. Thank you so much, Jay, who's here with us at the Brown School. I'm seeing things from Mariah Phillip. And if I get your name wrong, I'm sorry, but you'll correct me when you're here in the fall and we get to meet in person, right? Mariah from Chicago, Tracy from Florida. Just, I mean, if you have your cameras on and I say your name, just give us a wave. And there's so many of you coming from so many different places. We really appreciate the richness of being able to bring you here in this platform, but it's just going to be incredible when we bring you here in the fall and you join us during this community. So I'm just wanting to give everybody a minute to say hello. I mean, we've got somebody, I think, from Azerbaijan. Just like, that's incredible. I just, when I was in school here, I actually, one of my close classmates was from former Yugoslavia and Azerbaijan. Yeah, so this is amazing. Megan from St. Louis, hello. Shout out to somebody from the hometown. Also Courtney and Nat from Texas. Wow, this is incredible. Thank you so much. Tomas is joining us from Costa Rica. This is just incredible. I'm just, if you get a minute, appreciate all the different parts of the world that are showing up here and what's compelling you. That's what we're here to talk about. What's compelling us to do this work and to want to be part of this community. So Dean McKay, so one of the things all the students who are here have in common is that they've been admitted to the Brown School. And so we want to ask, I know when you're admitted to the Brown School and you're applying, we ask you a lot of questions, right? Your essay questions, we're asking you about what compels you, what are you interested in, what draws you to the field. So Dean McKay, Mary, you gave us a little bit of this preview, but I'm kind of curious if you talk a little bit more about what motivated you to enter into the field of social work and the impact and the influence that you've wanted to have through your work.
Yeah. So I don't know how many of you are first generation students on this particular call, but I'm a first gen student. And so I'm the first in my family to get a college education. A master's degree was really off the map, and a PhD were letters that were really quite outside the experience that I had growing up. And so I would like to tell you that I grew up as a child wanting to be a social worker, and that's just not true. I didn't know what a social worker was. And so I went to college. My working class family was very excited to send a daughter to college as I kind of worked full time and studied in my undergraduate program. And I went off to be an accountant. And why was I going to be an accountant? Well, when you're from the background that I'm from, you need to go to school and you need to get a job. And that has to be pretty directly tied. What you should know about me is that I would have been a terrible accountant. And as a matter of fact, I didn't even do that well in like all those business, oriented classes that I took in undergrad. But what I did do well in were these introductory classes called social work. And if you're from a working class background, and I'm only saying this partially in a joking way, I loved those classes. They were about human beings. They were about helping and improving lives. And that really spoke to me. And what better major to have if you're from a background like mine? Social work, work is in the title. Certainly you can get a job if work is in the title. And I only told you that half jokingly because I was on a journey trying to even figure out, is this a career option in undergraduate? And I found that I had a particular set of skills that I learned, but gifts that I brought as a human. And all of you are bringing those gifts to this program. So you may not have full knowledge or the skills to complete right now the MSW. That's our job to give you that. But what I have to rely on you is to bring those gifts and talents and who you are, because inevitably social work, public health, social policy is a human enterprise. And so really, Atia, how did I get drawn into this work? I'm the accidental social worker. And yet, once I got on that track, was surrounded by a community of people that I felt like were my people. And that's the thing that I think the Brown School does create. It's why actually I get up every morning, but so do most of the people that work here in the square, is that we have found our people. We have found the people that really care about the state of this world. We have found our people that are truly upset at the ongoing injustices of this world. We have found people that really want to stick kind of their neck out and really make a difference. And so that kind of mission-driven kind of thread, happened across my career. Without a scholarship to my MSW program, I'm sure I wouldn't have gotten that MSW. I would have gone to work, but that scholarship made it possible for me to go and get that MSW. So I have a bachelor's and master's from Loyola University in Chicago. So that's where I'm from. And then my PhD is from what we would call not one of those fancy Ivy League schools. It's from the University of Illinois at Chicago. I'm very proud of that. And so I began my career in Chicago, and step by step, Tia, learned more, led more, did ultimately leave Chicago. So I was, if there's somebody in New York City in my Zoom squares, spent 22 years in New York City. Really kind of building a kind of a career and a life that's centered on how does every child have the supports they need to thrive. And so that it's very twisty and turny. So that's the other thing is that everybody, I'm going to do a talk for a set of scholars. They're called the Bettys. They share a Betty Johnson scholarship. They're women in leadership at the Brown School. So I'm going to talk to them at noontime today. And everybody wants to know, like, what's the straight path to make an impact? And I say, at least based on my own experience, it's a windy path. It's a path where you make a difference, where you discover things about yourself, you discover new capabilities, you apply yourself, but it's deeply engaging work.
Yeah, I mean, the twists and turns, I mean, we don't, in the moment of the twists and turns, we may not feel that we know what's next. But when we look back, they're some of the most rewarding parts of our pathway. So that was something Dean McKay and I were talking about this morning, the twists and turns that bring us here. So I do have to ask, I want to talk a little bit about the twists and turns in your pathway that brought you to the Brown School, because you have this incredible background as a researcher, and you headed the Division of Mental Health Research for Mount Sinai School of Medicine, and then the inaugural director of the McSilver Poverty Policy and Research Institute. And somehow your twist and turn pathway brings you to the Brown School, back to the Midwest. Tell us a little bit about what brought you specifically to the Brown School and what excites you about being here.
Okay. So I want you to know, I was really minding my own happy business in New York City 6 years ago. Many of you, St. Louis was not necessarily on your kind of goal path. And it probably wasn't on my goal path, although I'm going to tell you how wonderful it is in just a minute, so that you have to come. So I was actually in a space that I actually thought I would never leave, Atia. So 6 years ago, I was the inaugural director of something called the McSilver Institute for Poverty Policy and Research at NYU. And it was the privilege of a lifetime to build up from the bottom a kind of a research and training and service institute that took very seriously a mission of dismantling poverty, and particularly the intersection between poverty and structural racism. So to use my scientific tools, to use our educational tools, to use our kind of network to go at what I think are the root causes of some of the burdens and some of the ills that we currently experience, right? And so anybody that wants to just do a quick search on NYU and McSilver Institute, you'll see there's amazing work that continues, and that myself and colleagues spent years really trying to build that institute. And it was a really important platform for the field. It got a lot of attention in New York City, and it was very much involved in struggling with what does a university do and what's its role in social justice movements. And so we were particularly involved in after the killing of Eric Gardner, really one of my prouder moments were to put out a set of policy briefs around the trauma of racism. They seem, basic now, but the academy wasn't putting out science to really kind of correct narratives around why somebody like Eric Gardner needed to die. And so I actually didn't think I was going to leave. And so there was the deanship was open at the Brown School, and I did what people who were uninterested in moving do, which is I just deleted your notes. You wrote to me, I clicked X. You wrote to me again, I clicked X. And then one of our colleagues who was on the search committee, who I've known a long, long time. So if the name Enola Proctor means anything to you, she is a senior faculty member who has started not one field of research, but two. Mental health services research and implementation science. She's been my friend and my colleague forever. And she called me at NYU and she said, "Why are you ignoring us?" And I said, "Enola, you know I love the Brown School. I had two daughters that got their MSW at the Brown School. I think it's the best education in the country. No offense to all those other great programs that accepted you." Why? Because it has a set of offerings where you can really find your own path and put together a program that fits your parts of your journey. I love you guys, but I have a job that I really love. And this is how they get you, people. If anybody ever says to you this, you have to understand this is how they get you. They said, "Okay, look, we need a dean that is identified with the profession of social work. We need a dean that really understands public health, and that's what your research is. And we need a dean to stand up a very serious commitment and policy. Will you at least come talk to us so that we can help find the dean that can represent those three disciplines?" And I did. I said yes. And so that's how I came to the Brown School. Is I got deeply engaged with how important it was to put these programs and put these disciplines together. And then the other thing, let me just talk specifically about St. Louis, because I had been visiting St. Louis because my daughters lived here. New Yorkers in particular, East Coasters in particular, really do think we're doing something on that coast. These are states that are well resourced. They're considered progressive. When I started to more deeply engage with St. Louis, I can tell you definitively that some of the most progressive racial equity movements are happening here in St. Louis. There is dedicated work. Mm-hmm. There are system efforts. There is, curriculum that prepares you for this work. There is, the work that Atia and Jill Stafford and so many others are doing here at the school that aligns with what is happening in our communities. What's important to understand about, our work in New York City is a city like New York organizes very quickly to go back to the status quo after the death of Eric Gardner. That wasn't the case after Michael Brown's killing here. It's a wound that needs to be healed, and St. Louis won't let up until it gets healed. And that was important, and I wanted to be part of that. I wanted the Brown School to be a better steward and platform in that struggle. And it was probably those sets of issues that were about the school, but also could it lean in even further and be part of the leadership in St. Louis. And so that's how they get you. They invite you back. They did a very strategic thing. They had my daughters pick me up at the airport, right? And I've not looked back. I go back to New York to see my colleagues. I go back to New York to see the adult kids that still live there. But I'm really, really happy to be here and to really try to kind of organize us to do greater and greater things. Yeah,
absolutely. Thank you.
So that's the real story.
Yeah, that's what happened. I wasn't originally from here, and I actually came to the Brown School because they offered this international platform, and I said, I'm going to do social economic development, and I'm going to go abroad, and I'm going to never turn back. That's literally right. And I was a very intentional social worker, and not accidental, intentional. But I got here, and when the opportunity came, I wanted to stay. There was more I could do here by staying put. And then, of course, this was home, and it was becoming home in so many profound ways. And I got married and had a kid, and I think about now how I look back, and I'm so grateful that I made the decision to stay and to be part of this work. And it's been transformative, and the community building has been. And, a lot of our alum, they experience the same thing. So we're not going to scare you. We will let you go back. We will let you go wherever you need to go. The world is calling you. But sometimes it's true. You get here, and we have a really fair amount of alum who stay here because they realize in the short time that you're here for school, you develop some really meaningful relationships, and you also see what the opportunity is here. And it's a great opportunity. I have a good friend from New York. She went to like Princeton. She's amazing. When they've tried to bring her to St. Louis, she was also hesitant, like, well, I don't know. That's just not for me, right? But she got here, and she said, well, I'm just going to be here for a short period of time. And then the same thing happened. She built a life here. She built that network. She became connected to the work happening here. And I remember the day she told me, I just realized that I could be a big fish in a small pond here, and I could be more impactful. And that was important to her, that everything she did could be impactful than, going back to New York. So I appreciate you telling us that, Dean McKay. I want to invite the future members of our community. I want to say, I meant to tell you earlier that, you can engage with us. So please feel free to raise your hand, add questions or comments to the chat. We'd love to hear some of your, I'm just reading some of the chat right now, so I apologize if I get distracted, but Kathleen is just saying that she's the first in her family to go to graduate school. Thank you for sharing that. And so engage with us. If you have questions for us, if you have questions for the dean, we want to have a conversation with you. I do have another question for you, Dean McKay, though. And everyone started sharing this. When they introduced themselves, I asked them, either what's been a pandemic pastime that's sustaining you. So one of the things that I'm very much aware of is when you said the word work, right? Social work, public health, and policy. I mean, there is some deeply connection to like work. And so one of the things I realized was that when we choose this work, we are making ourselves proximate to the pain of others. And we're making ourselves proximate to some of society's greatest challenges. And we're saying we want to be alongside people in changing and making that change happen. And so at the same time, we have to remember that we're humans, and we have our own vulnerabilities, and we need to keep humanizing each other and humanizing the work and putting the human in the center. So I want to ask you, what fortifies you? What helps you stay grounded in the balance and the joy and the hope?
So you're going to hear a lot about kind of wellness and care for yourself and a host of things, because you and we are precious resources. And one of the things around this work is it really is soul challenging, right? So there has to be parts of your life that keep you going, that support you when you're really troubled. And so in the people that I've surrounded myself across this journey are like whole people, right? They've got things that they're passionate about in terms of work, but they have other parts of their life that are really, really important. Sometimes I like to think they live large, right? And so what are some of the things that keep me going? So it's some, I think, meaningful things to me that all of us have to discover. So first of all, that in addition to having this degree, I picked up along the journey a nutritional certificate. So I'm really interested in cooking and food. And so in this kind of pandemic experience, this extraordinary moment that we all are leading in, I am making soup 2 or 3 times a week. Danielle knows this because we're going to do soup with the dean or some silly thing but why do I like soup? Because it is a way to get vegetables in your diet really easily. And you can use anything in your refrigerator, even if it's a little bit on the older side, because you boil the heck out of soup. And so I have become really quite a soup maker. If you like spice, I like spice. And so I am constantly feeding my family these soups, and I'm getting better and better at it. So the other thing is, one of my sons was in New York City as New York City closed down in March. And he was in the restaurant industry. He still is now here in St. Louis, but he moved to St. Louis pretty much as a pandemic was taking hold of the city in pretty traumatic ways, as he laid off about 100 people and then himself the next day. So he didn't come to me in great shape in St. Louis. And so he and I have taken up running. I had not run for decades. I was not excited about running. And now, he's decades younger than me, but now we're running 5Ks together. And so I really love that a lot. My foot hurts because I'm old. But that has become, for me, something that helps me to manage the twists and the turns. Somebody else loves running. So there are some if you're not from here,
Mariah from Chicago, your hometown, said that we should have a recipe book. We need a recipe book.
I think that's right. I think that's, so I think what you put in your body, how you expend your energy, those are some of the things that really do keep me going. And then I have some pretty strong connections to people, both that do this work and people that don't do this work. And I think that's really, really been important. So those of you that are from St. Louis, you know that you're channeling Forest Park. Forest Park, St. Louisans like to tell you that Forest Park is bigger than Central Park. It is. It is. So if you thought that Central Park was the biggest park, it is not. It is truly amazing. And it's a great place to run. And because a portion of it is closed off from cars. And so that makes it and very, very close to campus. Yeah.
So Kathleen has asked us a really interesting question. I love this. Kathleen asked us, and Kathleen, you can feel free to go off mute and ask it unless it's okay if I ask it for you.
Okay, I can ask.
Yeah.
Hi, Kathleen.
Hi, how are you? Good morning, everyone. I teach nonviolent communication every week or two. It's part of my practice. So I'm curious if there are common aspects of the programs in the Brown School that help create a culture of compassion and deep listening, which seem like they would be natural parts of programs that are designed to help individuals and communities.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think that what Kathleen, candidly, I think what you'll find is that as you begin, we will begin in all a range of spaces around even understanding what your question was, which is how is it that we deeply, in my tradition, kind of radically listen to each other, seek for understanding first. And some of us come out of academic traditions where there's debate, where there's expansive worldviews or more narrow worldviews. All of that calibration you will watch happening in your community, right? Because we are all coming from an incredibly diverse set of prior experiences, sensitivities, and skills. So I think that what you'll find kind of across the curriculum is a set of things. Deep commitment to you being exposed to what's the very best in each one of these overlapping disciplines, and to build yourself to be able to use the best in terms of knowledge and skill and practice. And the human work is part of that, right? The human ability to talk, to listen, to create a new language. Like, what does equity mean, right? So I can give you, for example, the definition, which says your identity should not predict your outcome. right? Your racial identity should not predict your outcome. Your geography should not predict your outcome. Your economic status. There's a host of intersectional identities. The first female dean should not predict what I'm either paid or the experiences I have. And yet that is often the bulk of the work. Is to really kind of creating interventions that eliminate that your identity creates your outcomes. But that is a process by which we're all trying to figure out how is it that we contribute to injustice and inequity in addition to dismantle it. It's a big burden because it starts from a place that says there's a problem with me too. There's a problem that around disproportionate benefit. There's a real lot of unpacking. And so, Kathleen, I think that you asked this question around the programs. Different programs have greater or lesser abilities to unpack that, but it is completely the goal that each student that comes to the Brown School develop personally. And what I find is that it's a pretty transformative experience. You all won't recognize yourself from the beginning to the end. What I will tell you about the end is you will be dog tired. This I can kind of tell you. It's a lot. Graduate school is a lot. There's a lot to learn. There's a lot to read, but there's a lot of growing to do. What I find as I speak to alums from these programs is they reflect back on this experience with unbelievable pride. I can't believe I did that. And I so underappreciated when the dean hands you, hopefully at some point post-pandemic, your diploma again, right? I can't believe I didn't even appreciate how much I actually learned until I was out, till I learned it. And sometimes I don't even realize, until 10 years later. So Kathleen, it's a complicated way to answer your question, but this notion around radical listening is tough and so important, because if you're going to be of help in whatever setting you're going to be, you can't have a narrative in your head about that you understand that person's situation or this community's perspective, right? And all of us have been trained by the world to talk more and listen yet less. Right?
Yeah, I appreciate your response. And I'm getting that within each discipline, within each program, we're gonna be doing self-reflection and learning about the other person's perspective. And in that space, we can be humble and deeply listen.
Absolutely.
We can. The challenge is for us to be humble and deeply.
That's right.
And when we fail, that we apologize. When we misunderstand each other, we recognize that. And that also is tough on humans. So in some ways, you have the shared responsibility with the Brown School to unravel some of the stuff that you're bringing in and crowd that out with some different skills. And it's exciting, but I don't want to minimize, the importance of that work. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for the questions. I just really want to say how much I appreciate. We do have spaces where the entire school gets together. So even, especially across the pandemic, we have had some really tough things happen in our community, and we've created listening circles where we are challenging everyone to operate in a set of practices around deep listening, just as you said. And I have to say that some of it may actually come from the spirit and the discipline of nonviolent communication. We had just an incredible student and alum, Braveheart, who was a practitioner in nonviolent communication. And I remember when I first took a workshop with Braveheart a couple years ago and learned about, I was like, I think I knew this, but I didn't know I knew it. There was a beautiful framework and a whole system around it. So I appreciate you, sharing it. That's your background. And I think you will see that we do, over time, there is a little bit of there's definitely a common culture. But it's a culture of learning, of collective learning. It's a culture of listening. It's a culture of trying. And the culture is evolving. We're always trying to to improve the culture and to weave into new learning and new knowledge and new ways of being together into our culture. So that's happening, and you're going to see that while you're here. Also, I want to say, if it's okay, Victoria asked, could we speak about integrating the history of integrating a public health and then later a social policy program under a school of social work? And how have the newer two programs been built up within the social work framework?
So that's a great question, Victoria. And so I'd like to think about this kind of history as bringing out the best in these professions, but also changing the professions, right? So that notion, I think if you take a look at even just a recent article that was released by some of our colleagues in public health that focused on health equity, centering health equity by those senior colleagues that have been like center directors and really professors in public health their whole career. I think that's completely both the need to evolve public health, to take on not only studying disparities, but eliminating them, understanding the intersection of kind of a set of health outcomes and structural racism. That perspective that they just wrote about in public health is completely influenced by shoulder to shoulder being with colleagues at the Brown School in social work, right? So I think that positive influence is really important. And I see that our public health program could really lead in that space nationally. The other thing about public health is it brings a rigor and a comfort with data that many times, you know, social work as in its history has not always been comfortable with, right? It's really, I don't want to, you know, be cheesy about our politics, but facts matter, information matters. And I think that's kind of science. My colleague Sean Joe, when we were introducing ourselves to our trainees yesterday, he talked about information and facts and data and science as being an important platform for social change, right? And so that those rigorous methods, to not be afraid to bring values and beliefs, but also information, incredibly important. And so I think that's what our public health colleagues have really brought over the history. Social policy is a big deal. Social policy is the newest program. And I think that it comes out of this real interest in making a larger and larger impact. So I must tell you, I'm looking around the squares and I want some of you to think about running for public office. I really am tired of us deferring our key pieces of legislation at the federal level, at our state level, at our local level, to people that don't have grounding in social welfare and health and a whole set of content that you all will have. And so I think advocacy is great, Atia. I think it's really important. You should know that I'm the president of the Academy of Social Work and Social Welfare, which is a national organization. I mostly did that because as a dean, I can't sign on to legislation, but as the Academy president, I can. Yeah. And so what's important to me is that we not be on the sidelines, but that we in fact are willing to engage in a set of activities that social work and public health practitioners haven't typically been in. I have amazing alums, and so will you, this alumni network. And one of our alums is staffing the Senate Appropriation Committee right now. Another alum is second in charge of HHS. If she can get through that nomination process. It's really important to me that some of you consider social policy and not defer those to other disciplines. And so I'm super excited about the dual degree. It's challenging. You know, I mentioned that I wasn't so great in the intro to business courses. So it was funny that I became a quantitative researcher. And so there's heavy quantitative kind of platforms in the social policy, really, really needed if you're going to go into kind of this legislative game. Yeah.
Absolutely. Great. So there's a couple of questions coming into me from private messages. I want to say thank you everyone for opening up and asking these great questions. Thank you so much, Dean McKay, for your candor and your honesty. It's one of the things I really appreciate and love about you. So I got a really great question and I love it so much. When you come to the Brown School, there's a convergence of identities from literally all over the world.
Yeah.
And we bring our whole selves with us. And that's everything from, our identities in terms of race and gender and sex, and also religious identity and socioeconomic and our background and international. And it's really rich. And I will say that we're a very inclusive community. And we're striving to be centered in a culture of equity, but also belonging. That you belong here because you want to do this work, because you want to create new pathways for humans to reach their fullest potential and to dismantle the barriers and the structural barriers that inhibit that. And so that's a calling to come here. But I will say this. You're never going to be asked or forced to do anything, but we are going to ask you to always be in a space of trying to create that sense of belonging, bringing your whole self and identity here, and helping other people to feel welcome in who they are, accepting people how they are, seeing the value in every human that comes here and what they want to do. We're going to share different political views. We're going to share different socioeconomic backgrounds. There's going to be a lot of difference and diversity. And what we ask is that you think about that as being a place of richness. In the natural world, a place that has great biodiversity is one of the most thriving ecosystems ever, right? The more biodiversity, the better. It's like that for us. We want to understand people's experiences. And so the more different perspectives we have, the more people with different perspectives and different backgrounds, the richer that conversation, the richer the learning can be. And so just keeping an open mind that this is a learning journey that will challenge you. It'll challenge you to understand the experience of others. It'll challenge you to be empathetic. It'll challenge you to think about the world differently and see it differently. The data and the science will show that. And your next door neighbor, like the student who's sitting right next to you in a classroom, may be very different than you. And so we ask that you be open to the challenge of being part of that community of inclusivity, that you be open to the challenge of hearing each other and listening deeply, and also sharing who you are. So it's very interesting because I come from a background where I'm Muslim, and I came from actually like military background. My father was a Marine, and then later on we actually came from a very like poverty background, honestly, the twists and turns in life. And all of that brought me here. Into a place of saying, where's a community where a person's identity is valued? Where's a community where I can learn from the experience of others, and that's going to prepare me even more for my journey as a change maker. So I really want to say thank you for some of the questions about, that definitely is a thing, right? that you're going to have there's going to be some personal experiences that will challenge how you think and what you believe. And our take on that is that makes you stronger, and that'll make you stronger in the work you want to do, even if the work you want to do is to go right back to your community of origin, right? To go to the place where it matters to you. But we're going to arm you. We're going to just help you build up those strengths and those skills that allow you to be in a world that is really accepting of humans, that values other humans, that knows how to build community and build collaborative spaces to challenge oppression, to create better systems, and to reimagine the future of a world where we can say that there is justice and there is equity. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So a couple other questions, I think. Oh, wow. Somebody asked about resources for first gen, and somebody else asked about accessibility in the university. And I know Dean McKay and I are just in a couple of weeks, we're going to listen to a panel of students talk about their students with disability, talk about their experience at WashU and to challenge all of us to think about how to make this a more inclusive and accessible community. So I don't know if there's anybody else on here who wants to talk about, there's definitely some first-gen resources. I can't say explicitly what they are, so I don't know if anyone else wants to share. And there's definitely a focus on accessibility, and we're committed to just getting better and better at making accessibility in two ways: coming here and being here and having this experience, and then also like your experience while you're here, being that the knowledge and in the classroom and the learning and is more accessible to you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I think before Danielle is here and others, what's important is that there are kind of, a set of resources either, related to the question around first gen resources, ways that you can connect with other first gen students and faculty. In terms of accessibility, there's a set of dedicated kind of resources within the school and the university. Do not stop there, though. I just want to encourage you to really connect with the humans at the school, because this is a differentiator between the Brown School and some of the other places that I have worked. We are not taking thousands of students. You're going to be in a relatively manageable cohort where you will become known to each other, to your professors, to the student support that we have available. We have a rich set of student supports that Danielle Bristow and Deshawn and Miriam are involved. But you should be in conversation with your advisors and humans to ask for what you need and make clear how we can help you be successful. Because that's the importance of this community, right? And it's also a really important muscle for you to kind of be visible and have that experience of reaching out and trying to meet your needs, because part of these professions are you're going to help other people do it. And so very much make sure that that you're in conversation, not just around the basic ways to connect or be supported or take advantage of resources, but that, and Danielle is putting some kind of links, and so Sarah in the chat, but just these are the foundation as opposed to, all that you can kind of be accessed and that we can help you create for this, for yourselves. Yeah.
So I just want to thank everyone again for being here. This has been, we don't usually get to do this. So the opportunity to do this has been phenomenal. I see the dean like 3 times a week, but we don't get this kind of conversation. And definitely not with this just amazing new group of people who, I just know that I'm going to see many of you come this fall, and I'm just really excited about that. So we have 3 minutes left, and I want to just, let Dean McKay have the last few minutes to just kind of round us out for this morning, for this week. But my deep gratitude for everyone here. I know there's a sacrifice you make and a risk you take in pursuing graduate education, in coming somewhere that you may have never been before. And so we thank you for even considering being here. We thank you for the trust you place in us to talk to you this week about what your experience may be like, and know that there's going to be twists and turns. You're going to have your own unique experience. And Dean McKay is absolutely right. A couple of years outside of getting your degree, you'll realize that you did so much more than earn a degree. And you'll be so grateful for your experience at the Brown School. It may be 1 year, it may be 3, it may be 5, but you'll come away and you'll say, wow, that was transformative. And I had no idea how well prepared I am for this work. But it does happen. And when I talk to all my alumni friends, that's the conversations we have. It's like, we're so grateful for that. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Dean McKay. I'm going to turn it over to you for the last couple of minutes.
And thank you also, Kathleen, for your nice encouraging comment. Even deans need encouragement. And so there's just a couple of things I want to say to you on this journey. Be fearless, stretch yourself, go after the goals that you have set forth for yourself. Take advantage of inside our school, outside our St. Louis community, to stretch and grow and to help you be the very best change maker that you possibly can. I'm super excited to welcome you. I want you to know that this pandemic has stretched me in ways that I am only beginning to understand, as have all of us. We've been through some stuff. Many of us through a lot of things. And so as you think about the importance of social work, public health, and social policy, I need you, and we collectively need you in this world now more than ever. This has been an experience that our school, I think, has come together and really kind of centered the human beings and their health and well-being, but we also followed the science. That was hard. That was hard as science was emerging, but I want you to know the Brown School Public Health Safety Protocol works. And we stayed open, and we stayed in community and in person as well as remote. And I'm really looking forward to the fall, as we can lead through very complicated circumstances. And so I have a lot of confidence that coming out of this pandemic is as important learning as what we learned in it, and how you prepare yourself for what's next. And so, and I have a lot of confidence that we're going to do this well. It is hard work. But it is important work. And so I'm really happy to call you my new colleagues, and I can hardly wait to welcome you in the fall. So thank you, Atia. Thanks to everybody who's a member of this team. You guys are just awesome. And I look forward to kind of